Are we live, Les? Are we good to go?
Well, I think so. So if anybody can tell us in the chat whether they can see us at this moment in time, that'd be great. Confirmation, audio, visual, etc., etc. That'd be good. Uh, right then, I think what we'll do then, Paul, since as I've just been looking in the chat and there's a good fair few of our regulars in there and probably some new ones as well, Paul. So
Excellent.
I've got to welcome everybody to the Truth Proof live stream. I'm Les from Digital Creations, helping to produce tonight's show. And as you can see, it's just me and Paul. As I said, got some great accounts and also would love some questions from you guys. First of all, I think I will just have a look who's in the chat tonight. Wow, big long list. Stephen Giles, Tony Worrell, Al, Mally Dodgson, Ian Linford, Baby with a Laser, and Alison Buttle is in, one of our moderators. And we've got, let's have a look, Olufsen, Janice Parry, I should say, and Stargazer Eternal, welcome. Some of you guys I know are regulars. And we're just going through. The Revenant is in. Welcome, the Revenant to tonight's show. Jojo is in. And we have Lisa Rod. Welcome, Lisa, to the show. Nickname is in. Rocky Nuisance. And let's have a look. Is anybody? Probably loads I've missed off.
I think
Steve Trees, Dave Drummond, yeah, and the Disabled Welshman. Let's have a look. I'm just going through now. Mark Fannell, welcome, Mark, to the show. And did I mention Ralph Winter?
I don't know.
Is Ralph saying, evening, folks. Fred Flintstone, and I think, and of course, a great supporter of the show, Lee Roscoe's in. Hello, Lee. And Richard, Steve 71, UK Outdoors. Yep, and anybody I've missed off, I apologise now, because I know you're all coming in at various times. So
sounds like a game of bingo, Les.
Yeah. It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
All good.
So,
yeah. I saw
we hope you've all had a good week.
I don't know I think everybody's had a good week. Weather's picked up on it, and we're all good to go. We're all still as interested in this crazy subject, aren't we? That we're all sort of immersed in. And
yeah, sure.
Your reports come in, Les. And obviously, I know you probably asked prior to this even, but send Alison and Sky if Sky gets in the chat. Yes, Sky's there. Thanks a lot, Sky.
Sky in.
Send some questions in capital letters, and let's just get it kicked off. There's a few reports come in. I think things in this area anyway are becoming a little bit more active again, Les. And,
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And to illustrate that, really, I've got to pick up on one of the latest reports that you got in. And it was from somebody called Richard Appin, and this is a recent report. Fascinating by itself. And did it come in 11th of April, 2023?
11th of April, yeah. And
so just a few weeks ago, yeah.
And as Richard's got a scientific background, need to stress that. Quite a critical thinker, and spoke to him this week at length, and. Yeah, he's blown away. He's absolutely blown away. And I like that. When somebody who usually comes up with an explanation and a solution for what's being seen can't quite understand what they've seen. And we'll hold his hands up, people. We're not going to say that there is an explanation, that there isn't an explanation out there for it. But it's interesting, and it's got Richard baffled. And basically, he came on holiday. He hired a cottage, I think, at Filey, with his family, and not just to look at unexplained phenomena, but that were at the back of his mind, because he sent me lots of information over years, Richard, and lots of ideas on it, how to improve things that are being said and look into things in a more critical way, rather than just saying we stood on cliff tops and sort of, I don't know, focused his mind on a star. he didn't say that, but that's, you know where I'm going with it. So anyway, he comes to Filey, not expecting to see anything, but he wants to just absorb what's happening around here. And I think he told me that he went to RSPB Bempton and spent, well, I would have said an hour or two there with his family, having a look round, enjoyed it. On one of the other days, he decides he wants to catch the sunset. And I think his wife and family stayed in their home, you know, the home that they're staying in. And he decided to walk from Filey along the coast. And it's approximately, as we know, as the crow flies, 6 miles from Bempton Speeton to Filey. And he's going to walk along the coast on this evening. So he takes an evening walk, hoping to catch sunset. All the time in the back of his mind, he says, I'm thinking, I hope I see something. I hope there's something to this, you know, but not really sure that he were going to do. Now, when he sent me the report initially, he said that this had been seen in Filey, from Filey. And when I got the images off him, you know, the few Earth images, Google Earth images, and a few photographs, it was clear that it weren't Filey that he first saw it. So he'd walked from Speeton, he'd gone to the next seaside resort, a small place. There's next to note there, actually, Reeton, and continued. And you've all heard me speak about these cliffs at Speeton and Black Cliff. Well, he actually, I think, looking at the drawings, looking at the Google Earth images where X marks the spot, he were close to Black Cliff. And not seeing anything. Hovering about, night's coming in, it's 7:30. It started at 7:30-ish. And however long that journey's taken him to get there, he did tell me, but I haven't got it in my head at the moment. But when he's at this spot, he decides it's starting to get dark. Obviously, he's not familiar with coast. And you would have been able to scramble up those cliffs at Black Cliff, but you'd see it's still be a horrible place to have to walk and negotiate in dark. So he thinks he's going to go back. Sets off walking back. And he reached Black Cliff at about 8:30 p.m. Sets off walking back, looking over his shoulder. Not been doing that long when he said maybe 400. He got to within 400 meters of the cliffs and then sets off walking back. Looks over his shoulder and he can see a red light on the side of the cliff, a glowing red light. Now, as I've said, and anybody who lives in area knows that the cliffs of Speeton are sheer, they're vertical. There's nobody or nothing going to be on those cliffs. His words were it were 80% up the cliff. So just over 3/4 of the way up the cliffs. We know that the 420 feet-ish at the tallest. So he's looking at this red light. And as he's watching it, he said, he didn't say it flew down, he said it floated down at about 45 degrees. Thought it was an helicopter at first. Now, it stayed over at sea and then it turned white. No, it didn't instantly turn white. It went over the sea and just stayed over at sea and turned white. And then after a short time, it disappeared. Didn't fly away, it disappeared. So that got him all sort of, it were an orangey red light, and that got him all, I don't know, I wouldn't say excited, but all sort of 400 meters away. We can look from them cliff tops and we're looking at in between 50, depending on conditions, 15 and 20 miles. You can get a helicopter on the horizon. You can hear that helicopter. You can hear it seeking. He said, but this thing was close to the cliff anyway. Because he'd gone through everything. When he got home, he went through military drones. He went through a list of all sorts of things because it does something else later on. Because the only thing he could think of is it's some kind of sophisticated drone. You know, it's not flashing and it's a constant red light. So, hovered and turned white and then disappeared. Didn't fly away. He decided to walk back towards the Filey Bay Resort. And he's looking all the time. Nothing there. When he gets back towards Filey, so now he's looking at approximately 5 to 6 miles. And I'd welcome some questions for this, people. If anybody's got out, they want to just run past us or on anything. Yeah. It's there again. It's over at sea, and it's the white sphere is there, above the water. Strangely enough, on both occasions, he's not said that it illuminated the water below it. And that's something that we've noted as well on many occasions. Now, he said the most peculiar thing happened then. It split in two and became two objects. And that kind of ruled out his drone theory. Because at first he's walking back just trying to, all sorts of things going through his mind, but closest thing that he could get that this could be would have been a drone, even though it was so close to cliffs. So the whole incident spanned between 8:40 p.m. and 9:50 p.m. approximately. Now he's got some videos, very grainy. It's taken on a phone, people, and it's taken in dark conditions. If you go on truthproof.uk website, Don Lodge has put Richard's report on, and one of the little phone videos where he's talking to me on the phone, and he's not talking to me live. He's going, Paul, I can see this. Now, I've got other photographs. I've got a load of frame captures from him showing two balls over the sea and other items. So we'll probably get them loaded onto the website as well. But that was just the first one that were put on, Les. Any views on that?
Yeah. So did he say it was, when he saw it over the sea, it was illuminating the sea? Did he say?
No, he didn't say it was. No,
he couldn't. Right.
Unusual.
So when he first saw it was red and it was the side of the cliffs. Yeah. Was it illuminating the side of the? Oh, no. Was it like attached to the cliffs? Did it look like?
He said it looked like it came. Now we need to be clear here, because I don't want to say something that Richard didn't say. But it was that close. It could have come out of the cliff. It looked like it were on the side of the cliff. 80% up, just over 3/4 of way up, so well over 300 foot up the cliff. And interesting, 310, 320 foot up side of a cliff, comes down at 45 degrees.
Right, yeah.
Stays above water, vanishes.
And just to remind people of the time span, from the time he saw it at the side of the cliff and the 45 degree move to it splitting up over the sea, what time was that?
He saw it move from the cliff and land over, over the sea. Observed it for a short time. It went from red-orange, he's saying, to white, and then vanished. Stayed around for a while, but realised he's not at all familiar with the coastline. So he decided he better get going back. It's starting to get dark. When he gets back, he's approaching Filey, turns back just to see before he thinks, right, I'm heading to the cottage now. And it's there again over at sea, above the sea. So he watches it again. He's feeling relatively safe now. And all this safeness, it's not because of the object, it was because of the tides. He didn't want to get cut off in his mind anyway. When it's there as one solid light over the sea, it breaks in two and becomes two. Oh, he did say that there were 300 to 400 meters apart, his estimation, and there's two of them over at sea, and eventually they disappeared. Right. So that's interesting. That's on 11th. So it's not, what date are we today? The 20th. So we're not too far away. And then we know we've got all those other reports, earlier in month, which I've been travelling to Waldgate on a morning, overlooking Driffield and all surrounding area, hoping to catch a glimpse of these things, maybe get them on film so we can show people. No luck so far, people, but there you go. And
brilliant. I've not related to that, but I have a couple of questions here. Shire Fans is asking about a recent video we put out, and Paul, is Blake Howell Lane in Bempton? Thank you very much.
Yeah, it is. I noticed in the comments when we put that little 3 to 4 minute segment up other day, people were asking, and maybe we ought to do a little write up or put a little caption in, Les. I don't know if people think that might be a good idea to describe places in a little bit more detail. Yeah. You go up Cliff Lane. I can't say Cliff Lane's a mile long. Let's say it's 3/4 of a mile long. It's halfway up, and on your, as you're going up, on your right hand side, there's a dirt track. It's not going to be signposted Blake Howell Lane, and it's a dirt track, and you'll walk down that lane, and then you can cut across and go to the cliffs. It's just another way to get to cliffs, which the locals use. It comes out onto what's called Stone Pit Lane. Incidentally, Stone Pit Lane, over years, we've had black cat sightings on Stone Pit Lane. And there's nobody up there. There's only a couple. I know there's only 2 properties up there. And so, once again, it's pretty remote. So Blake, as we've said, means black. So it's Black How, Black Burial Mound Lane. An interesting account that I got from that man. And obviously, anybody who's seen that and looked on our YouTube live channel and seen that little one we've put on, I obviously took my grandson Noah with me, and he was sort of excited about this stone he'd found. Weren't quite a fossil, but yeah, I thought it amused me anyway.
Yeah, yeah, he's certainly making his mark in your little short videos.
Oh,
there,
he loves
Paul.
it. He loves it. Yeah. Go on, Les.
Yeah. I'm just reminding myself where I'm up to here. The Staxton Pond Puma off.
This is
on Downforden Lane off the B1249 in 2016.
I've got
Can you
some
tell
info
us
on that somewhere? Let's just have
a little bit more info? I think you've got on that.
Yeah, well, yes. Well, the cat's been seen again, for starters. Whether it's the same one, because I'm going back now. I first wrote about the Staxton Pond Puma in Truth Proof 2. And
I'll just cut across you there, Paul. For anybody who's not familiar with the area, can you just place where Staxton is in the UK?
We're in North Yorkshire primarily. So if you picture us in Bridlington now, or me, 11 miles inland, and you'd be at Staxton. And anybody wanting to Google the area of Staxton, I suggest you probably type in RAF Staxton Wold, because it's very close. You can see RAF Staxton Wold from this pond. It's a natural pond. It's at the side of this single track road, and I was told about it, oh gosh, years before writing the book, that drivers going home to Forden, there's a little village at the bottom of this lane. Don't ask me how many properties, probably 10 or 11 properties are there. Probably gets cut off in really heavy snow and things. And they'd seen a big black cat crossing the road, but it were always near this pond. So you've got a bit of arable land to the right and to the left, but then you've got this really thick strip of trees that run just about the entire length of the lane.
Yeah.
And it's not a hedgerow, Les. It's more than a hedgerow. It's probably between 10 and 30 feet wide in places and quite dense. It's full of brambles, but in the middle of it and on the edge of the road, but you can't, unless you stopped your car or were a local, you wouldn't know it were there. There's a pond, never measured pond, but I mean, we're probably looking at about 30 feet by 30 feet. And I've been told about this cat that always was seen on a night around that pond area crossing the road. So back then, I don't know what year, back in 2016, I contacted who owned the land. There's a gallery at the top. They've turned some barns into an art gallery. And I went and spoke to people and found out who owned the land. And I asked if I could set cameras up to do some bird watching.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of hotels to say, because they might not have known about a big cat. But I set the cameras up and I spent a week there and I absolutely got nothing. But it's been seen again. Now we're in 2023 now, and if you imagine the life expectancy of these things, regardless of whether they're wild or domestic, is about 17 years. It far exceeds the Wildlife Act. So we've got to assume that if they're a living, breathing thing, then they're breeding in area. So it's been seen again. Somebody else has contacted me that isn't the original witnesses to say that they'd seen this thing on that lane. So I might be going up there again. I might be having a little nose around. I mean, if they're there, you have a stronger possibility of filming them. And they've been seen. Chris Wright, who's helped us extensively with Wolfland, massive help. I don't think we could have made Wolflands, to be honest. Les, we aren't, Chris, could you?
No, he knows the area inside out, and mapping is his big plus point.
Yeah.
I think.
So to jump away from Staxton briefly, Chris has contacted me this week because he's always around the area of North Yorkshire. That's where his job takes him. And people in the remote woodland areas up around there and forest areas have been, guess what? They've been seeing black cats. So more than one report. So that'll be something we might want to chase up in a few weeks' time. But is anybody get any questions towards that, Les?
Not that I've
No,
noticed
no worries.
as yet. What I'd like to ask though is, in general, I know this is going to be really probably difficult, is how many black cat sightings have you picked up, say, within a year? And I'm not asking for a definitive number, obviously, but just on average, how many comes through your hands in a year? And and also to follow on from that, have the sightings increased year
They're
on
definitely
year?
increasing, but there could be a few reasons for that, Les. It could be that now people have found somewhere to report them. You know, it could be the fact that they can sort of do a few Google searches and find somebody that's actually writing about them and
Yeah,
documenting them, and Don's putting them on website. But
yeah,
yeah, we've got them this year, and we've got them in usual places. It's always around Buckton. You'll see them. There'll be people. I should imagine at some point this year going to be reporting them around the Dell, close to the RSPB Nature Reserve. There's a hollowed
yeah.
out area very close to centre, but they've been reported there. I've not personally seen them there. Myself and Bob saw one on Bempton Lane. But there's something interesting here, and I might be completely wrong, but these cats seem to be slightly different. And when I
Right.
say different, when we talk about a big black cat, they're big, but they're not panther-sized. I'll give an example. An elderly couple came into the charity shop where Bob Brown works. He got talking to them, and they told him they were staying at Flamborough, and it turned out that they'd seen a big black cat again, the lighthouse at Flamborough. So they'd parked their car up, and anybody that's been there knows that you've probably got about 500 yards down to the cliffs, but in between that there's a bit of sheep grazing. There's the cliffs to the left hand side, and then a field, and there's sheep in it, and gorse, the thorny yellow flowered bush. It's quite thick with gorse, and they're sat there just observing, just having a coffee maybe, I don't know, and a cat came out of the gorse and went across the field. And there's keen to stress that it was bigger than a spaniel dog, but not like what we'd imagine a black panther to be. And I've often wondered, and other people have said this to me, other people who are interested in this cat phenomenon, if there's a subspecies, if we are dealing with something that's different, that's gone under the radar. I don't know, because the one at Fordham, the Staxton Pond one, as we'll call it, the descriptions I got from it was very long and thin. Long and thin. Bigger than a domestic cat, a lot bigger than a domestic cat, but long and thin. And we're getting similar reports in other places. I've done one of those shorts that I don't know whether you're going to put it up in next day or two, Les. Although it could be my fault, guys, I'm saying that, and I might not have sent it, Les, yet. But there's one from a pond, another natural pond at Speeton. And we'll just touch on it now, because even though we're going to put it up as one of them shorts, and it's a lady dog walker who lives in the neighbouring little village of Reeton, and she's walking along the path heading home after she's walked her dog, and what's crouched drinking in this pond is a big black cat. So they're there. I mean, then you're going to get people saying, well, everybody's got photos. How come nobody's got a picture of it? Do you know something? You're that shocked when you see these things. We went to Bempton last night. Myself, Peter, and Ian. I think Ian's in chat. And Ian had been wanting to come up for a while. He's been up before, really interested in this. He's had his own experiences. And we stayed up till about midnight. Stayed up there last night. And it were absolutely fabulous. Star-filled night. So, I'm not bothered about watching TV, so it's good. It clears your mind. But when we went up there at about 9 o'clock, Pete just says, hey, what's that? And out at sea, well in the sky, the most illuminated, like more silver than white, ball lit up, and then almost like a protrusion came to it. I went to get the camera. I'd got a little Psionics on me, but I'd got enough light with the NX80, but it had gone. It just literally appeared and disappeared. There's no accounting for these things. It's difficult and frustrating.
Let's have a look then. I'll just have a look through questions, Paul.
Okay.
And let's see where we. Andrew Sheehan, which famous cryptid would Paul like to see in the flesh and why?
Do you know, it's a great question, isn't it? I don't know if I'd like to see any of them, you know. Judging on what the people who have seen them have said, I think we'd be foolhardy to think we'd be kind of like Indiana Jones and intrepid and go charging towards them. So I don't know. If I got the chance, I'd love to go to America and get into them big forests and spend some time around those places and just do some research with these guys who claim to have seen Bigfoot. And I think it would be a fabulous thing. I don't know if Andy Ramsden ever comes in chat. If he were in tonight, I don't know if he is. And I think it was 2019. We did see something very unusual on those cliff tops at Bempton, and I had my wife's Canon. What is it, D12? I don't know what it is, Les, but I've got that little Canon camera with me. I'd also got the camcorder, but it started to rain. And people will have heard me tell this story. We were on cliff tops and something ran from the edge of the cliff. And I know people have always got mistakenly thought, I mean, I'm saying it's climbed up the cliff. And I don't for 1 second think, oh, it could. But something, a big animal moved from the edge of the cliff and there's a 3-bar fence. It cleared the fence. And I'm telling Andy, I've got my eye on it because I've got it in my peripheral vision. And it's dark, but he can only hear it. And it's heavy. Short time after, it started to drizzle and rain and we decided to pack up. As we're walking back, I put the light across the fields and some great big yellowy, I don't know, watery, yellowy pink eyes. It's looking at us. And instead of Andy was scared. And I was probably foolish because instead of running off or getting away, I got the camera, made sure the camcorder was shut, held it to my chest and walked across the field towards it. And it literally just turned away and disappeared, but then appeared further back looking at us. And that were, I don't know what that was. That were an uneasy kind of moment because I realised I'd gone quite far out. And I know Andy's talked about it a few times and he didn't like it, but maybe I think that were foolish, remembering that we've got some terrifying encounters in Wolflands, and although nobody got injured, they weren't nice situations. So a long-winded way around your question, I think I'd like to go to somewhere in America, one of these huge forests, Alaska or somewhere like that. I really would, while I can still walk and I've got the breath to do it, and research and work with people who've looked into the Bigfoot phenomena.
Before I go on to the next question, Paul, I'm just adding a little bit of a sidetrack to that, because you know, you'd like to go to America, you'd like to research with some of these other Bigfoot researchers, etc., and all that. How important do you think these trail cams are when it comes to detecting these creatures?
It's a difficult one, Les, isn't it? Because the experience when you look at the documentaries and the YouTube clips that are put up about people who are placing the trail cams, it seems that these things are avoiding them. Whether they can detect the infrared, I really don't know. I think everything's important. It's another tool. But then you've got other people saying, as soon as you put them up, you're going to discourage having any kind of interaction, any kind of contact, because they know they're there and they're not going to come near. There seems to be ultra sensitive to electronic equipment, so you know. So I suppose it's important. It's if we could create something. Is that the reason then? If the Patterson Gimlin film is the genuine article, is that the reason that they didn't use? They were using sort of conventional cameras to film it, so it weren't like digital and electronic. You know, is that the reason they got it on film? I don't know. Or did it just place itself there deliberately to say, yeah, we're real, you can see me, or was it fake? You know, and I've no views either way on that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting that none of the well, I haven't seen any.
It says Paul has gone a bit quiet. Probably Paul's went too far back, people. That's so I'll just move this microphone. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, that, Paul. As you say, it could be that they're more sensitive creatures than what we are, and they know exactly when there's any electronic equipment around, you know.
They've clearly got attributes that we haven't got, haven't they? You know, I mean, this ultra elusiveness, but I can never get my head around this lack of movement. You've got all the noise that they can create that's terrifying, and trees breaking and branches snapping, and then you've got the other polar opposite where people report them walking and not seeing no leg movement, almost as though they're gliding. So does that tell us then that, because I'll tell you what I haven't seen a lot of, Les. Everything okay there, Les? I'll tell you what I haven't seen a lot of. Evidence of smashed up trees and branches from the nights before, when these things have said to create chaos. I mean, and that would be a good thing. As a researcher, as somebody going to these locations, Les, can you hear me okay, Les? Yeah. As somebody going to these locations, what would interest me, if there'd been a night of absolute chaos with tree limbs smashing and breaking, I'd want to see that carnage. Now that
that's unusual. That's unusual in itself, because physical evidence, as you say, because you were them breaking, rushing through trees, not always seen, but they had trees crashing, branches breaking. Why isn't there an obvious trail when they come to have a look?
But you know what I think? I think that they much like, I don't mean they're like African grey parrots people, but I think they're mimics. I'm wondering if they can produce these sounds. They can produce these huge booms and huge cracks, because I'm sure if hunters and people trapped in forest had a night of sheer terror with branches breaking and everything else, I mean, we'd be seeing it, won't we? Surely people would get it on camera and say, look, this is the devastation after last night. But we're not seeing that. So I don't know.
All interesting stuff, Paul. I've got a question from 435-81609, and the question is totally different to what we've just been talking about. Have your kids been abducted, Paul?
I wouldn't know. I don't even know if I have. All I know is I had interaction with some strange beings as a child, and I'll get to kids. I'm not just moving away from them, I promise you. But I've got no recollection of going anywhere. Everything that happened seemed to happen within the confines of wherever I were. That doesn't mean it did. Have they been abducted? I don't know. I know one of our daughters, Jessica, reminds me about, not all the time, but she has done in the past now and again, about when she were younger, and me and her walking downstairs in this huge house, following a sphere of light. Where we went, I've no recollection of it. Jessica has. They've all of them have had some kind of experience whilst living in this property. That's all I can say, some kind of paranormal experience. And strangely enough, I've built a great big extension on the back of this property, and I only did it in 2010. So you wouldn't think the paranormal activity would be, if it's localized and imprinted in a building, you wouldn't think it would come outside, essentially, because it's in extension. But there's the spare bedroom, when they've stayed from time to time, I don't know if they've had a night out or anything like that, or they've just come to stay at mum and dad's, they've had a strange experience in that bedroom, and it's involved, I don't know how you'd term it. They've thought the door were open in the bedroom, and they've thought there's been a being almost looking like glass stood at them. And I've not said the names. I mean, everybody knows my girls' names, but because they might not want me to. But they've all experienced something strange in that house. Have they been abducted? I couldn't say. Define what abduction is. You know, I know you wanted to say something, Les, but let me just, before I finish, when I got the holes in my back in 1997, that night, they were telling me it were a bed spring turning in my back. So whatever were happening to me, and to receive those deep holes in my back, I couldn't have been laid on my back. But in my head, I was. I saw them either side at bed, yet my wife were at side of me. So I must have been somewhere else, but I don't know. I'm as confused now as I was then. You know, I love these people who've got all the answers, and I just haven't. I apologise for that, but I haven't.
Well, it's just a tag-on question, really, and this is just a general thing that I'm thinking about here. How how close, how paper thin is it that when you woke up the next morning and you think something's happened, how closely is it in one camp where it's just a lucid dream, or the other camp something is really happened?
Great, that's a great question, Les. And so, the more jump into the holes in the back as an example. I sat up on edge of bed and had no recollection of the night before, none at all. It had gone. And then I think there's a lot more things happen to me and to other people. And if you don't have them trigger words very soon after the event, unless you've really got some vivid memories after the event, but I never have, that you're going to forget. You're going to forget. And I sat on edge of bed and Mary went, "Oh, I don't believe it, Paul." I said, "What's the matter?" She says, "You've got 3 holes in your back." Instantly, it came back to me. Instantly, I could see them. I knew what I'd been told about the bed spring. So I think there's a lot of things happen to people in general. And sometimes maybe an absolutely vivid dream might be a little bit more than a vivid dream. But I think the key signs are, if you do wake up and you've got 3 holes in your back and you didn't have them at night before you went to bed, and then you've got these memories, then you kind of know something.
Yeah, I think my question was kind of directed at where people haven't got any physical evidence when they wake up in the morning, but they don't know if it's in one camp or the other camp. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know, Les, and it'll be one of those things where the majority of people, I would think, because it might not happen many times in a person's life, might actually just, it's one of them things I don't want to think too hard about it. I don't really want to learn about this. I don't want to listen to other people's stories because I don't want to believe what could potentially have happened. There's that, isn't there,
Yeah, and I just got a follow-on question actually from the same poster, and thanks for the questions, by the way. Do you remember being in a spacecraft, Paul?
No.
I think you've already alluded to this already.
No, I mean, it's such a... And what is a spacecraft? I mean, everything seems to take place in here. They've been told that there's a bed spring turning in your back. Without audibly hearing it. And I don't know. No, I don't. And I know there's people that do, and I'm not dispelling that that's what's happened. That's probably what has happened. And, this conversation, a 60-year-old could never have had a conversation like this, could you, 40 years ago, and had audience or people participating who are all searching for answers themselves, who are all interested themselves, because I think people now acknowledge the fact that these things are actually happening. But back then, when it were happening to me, back in it happened from childhood, but sort of really got bad, 94 to 98. I was going at doctors with the punch hole lesions that were appearing on my body as the doctors were describing them. And I'm lying to them. They're thinking I'm having some kind of physical abuse from somebody. And I'm actually sat there. They know I'm lying, but they don't know why. And I reckon today, by today's standards, I would still lie. I would still not say what were actually happening, even though I'm openly saying it here. But you feel like you're amongst people who perhaps understand, but you've also got to be mindful that it's getting thrown out into the vastness that is the internet, and not everybody is going to take what you're saying at face value.
Right. Some good questions in there, Paul.
Yeah.
And Barbara Davis is asking, I've got to be careful what I say because of YouTube guidelines.
No, don't get us banned, Les.
Yeah. What do you think about the M word being done by Predator, like in the sci-fi film? So,
who could say? Do you know that there are people, there are hunters, and I think in this country as well, who claim to have, and what Les is hinting at there, and what we don't say is that word because YouTube don't seem to like it, but the animal deaths, for want of a better word, could it be being done by some other unknown intelligence? And there's hunters in America, all over the world, that are claiming to have seen this almost transparent figure being moving about when they're in deer stands. I spoke to Jan Maccabee, the wife of the famous Bruce Maccabee, the guy who one of the best photographic analysts in the world, worked for the American military, didn't he? And hopefully we'll get Jan on. We might only get Jan on for an hour. In fact, it's just reminded me to get back to her. And she was in a deer stand and saw what she said resembled the predator. You know, and there's lots of stuff out there if people are interested. You know, don't just take my word for it that these things, whatever these things are being seen.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this the other week. But curiously, that account by Jan, I think more or less around the same time, there was a UFO seen from a rugby or football, American football match or whatever they're playing, baseball or whatever. Somebody can put me right there. Was seen hovering over the field, and I think her son was one of the players in that match.
Really, I didn't know that, Les. And I knew about the UFO, but I didn't know that little detail. But we'll see whether we can get Jan on to talk about that. And,
well, I'm up on right on that one.
If you're wrong, I mean, we're all.
Somebody can put me right. Yeah, there's a lot more knowledgeable people on the stream than what I know. So it's an interesting one, that the predator. Looking at Paul,
it's fascinating. I've never seen anything like that, really. You know, you in your peripheral vision, you catch things odd times, but it's anybody who's on Facebook, and a friend of mine on Facebook. Although I think my posts are public, I put a photograph on that came up from 6 years ago. I think it was 6 years ago, and we're taking photographs during the sunset of the cliff tops. There's a flower on cliff tops that grows, and I want to get some really good pictures of it this year with this new camera, and it's called Campion. It's red, and in the sunset, the scene looks brilliant. But I just took some of the standing stones that were the plinth for the radar at RAF Bempton, so from the cliff tops. And when I'm looking through the pictures, I see what I think looks like an alien, typical alien. Now I can see it, but it could be pareidolia. And the picture came up, and I posted it on Facebook the other day. I said, make of it what you want. I said, it's fine to say I can see nothing, because I'm not making any claims. In my mind, I can see it. And I get lots of pictures sent to me of supposed creatures in foliage and all sorts. And I can see, quite honestly, I can see nothing. And and if you look at it hard enough, you can probably see lots and lots of things, just like you can see a dog's head in a cloud. So that's what this might be. But I find it a fascinating picture. That's why I put it back up. I think it's had loads of people commenting on it. And other people, strangely enough, are seeing what I think I can see in the same place. And I haven't drawn a circle around it and said it's there, and I think I can see this alien. I've never said that. I just said I took this picture and throw it out there and just gauge what people think.
Yeah, and when I looked at it, I think I could see exactly what you just described there, Paul, as well. So.
And what I've got to do, because it's on an old hard drive, I've got lots of pictures from that evening. So rather than just put that picture up, which people are saying, where's it taken? Is it looking through a window? It's not. It's near the standing stones, but I need to back my words up and put some pictures on for people. It don't make the picture any more validated as regards it being what it is, but I just want people to realise where it was taken in context.
I've got a great question from Steve 071. Has Paul ever had any premonitions of his encounters? I don't think you've answered that question before, Paul.
No. Do you know when these things are happening, and I bet in childhood, I bet this has happened to lots and lots of younger people. When they're happening, or when it's happened, you're waiting for it all the time. And bearing in mind, during childhood, back in the 1960s and 70s, for me, it didn't happen every night. It didn't happen every week. It probably didn't happen every month. I've wrote Night People, and there's just a group of little cameos of events. But once it's happened, you're waiting, because it's so traumatic. You can't rest every night. You're hoping that it's not going to happen, but you're laid there sort of frightened to death. But and when it's happened, it's over. it gets you so intensely. Whatever the phenomena is, overcomes so quick that it's only when it's over you know it's happened. It's really hard to explain, and yeah, I'm glad it doesn't happen now.
Right, I've got a question. It looks like from Kim King, wondering if Paul or Les or anyone in your families have ever experienced the Alice in Wonderland syndrome, the feeling of growing smaller or things growing larger around you prior to an experience.
Anybody who's read Night People, I thought you were going to talk about the Oz Factor then, actually, when you said the Alice in Wonderland syndrome. But and it's weird what Lewis Carroll are writing about, and it makes you wonder what experiences that man who wrote that book had to have such a colourful mind. But Night People, and I think I included it in the book. I'm sure I did. And I remember waking sometimes in the night and everything, my hands, my arms, everything. And a little boy felt giant. It was weird. It was strangest feeling. Your hands felt absolutely huge, and probably people laughing at that. But, you know, I've never spoke about really, but I know I've written about it. So, other than that, nothing else. No.
Interesting, that one. Chris from the Outer Limits magazine.
Hi, Chris.
Question: is there any evidence left on the ground after the big cat sightings? For example, paw prints.
Good point, isn't it? You know, and I think everybody looks. I thought I found a huge print, Chris, at Speeton a few years ago, which we put in Truth Proof 4. Took a cast of it, and obviously there were claws in it. So we at first, when I saw the huge print, I'm thinking we've got some kind of cat here, but it would have had to be big. I think people underestimate just how small a leopard and a puma print is. And it's not some huge print. But anyway, we found the print, and a friend of mine who's at one time lived with a tribe of Indians, North American Indians, Peter Masters, who was in UK, sent images of the cast and the print to them, and they said extremely large wolf. Well, I don't know, make of that what you want. And that were on cliff tops. I mean, that's the only one I've took a cast of. So, Chris, yeah, looking for prints.
Yeah.
I found some prints at Boynton a few years ago. The look typical cat prints, big cat prints, yes. And I think we've got to look for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Sam Watson, who's been all over the world, literally all over the world, and he contacted me earlier in the week to say he'd packed that job in because he's been in deserts and everywhere. He sends pictures of places he's worked and places he's been, and he's got some kits to test for DNA and check animal samples, and he wants to help, and he only asked me this week, so obviously I'm going to jump at the chance again, that kind of help from Sam for fur samples and other DNA samples.
Yeah, and just my thoughts on this one, Paul, is that because, you know, the UK, or even where you're working, East Yorkshire and North Yorkshire, I think the problem here is that there's that many people who walk in these trails with dogs. Are you with me? I don't know. There seems more dog walkers now than ever.
Yeah.
And so are we in danger of not even spotting these prints because they've all been overtrodden,
distorted,
destroyed,
yeah, a good point. And let's not forget though, a lot of paths, a lot of woodlands, a lot of field tracks. That's all you've got to track. Everything else is inaccessible due to crops, due to privately owned land. I know people go on it, but a lot of the places that these things are, because they are elusive, they're using the places where nobody wants to go. Do you know what I mean? And that's why we've featured a few of these cat reports from what we've called the Speeton Hills, and it's not masses of hills. If you just go on a map and look, it's not a massive expanse of land, but it's all gorse. It's all very steep. It's all 45-degree inclines and steeper and rocky ledges the further up North Yorkshire you go. And are you going to find these things that can actually move about quickly and fluently in that terrain and slip under the undergrowth? Whereas, I mean, I know my age. I'm not in my 20s or 30s, but I'm struggling around getting up these hills at Speeton and stuff. And I'm still doing it, but you'd have no chance of pursuing anything or getting to those places to search. And it's rocky. Yeah. It's rocky ground. It's hard ground, so you'd have to get it in sludgy conditions to actually find a print.
So really, I mean, if you was talking about habitats. For these, this is where they'd be, where they're inaccessible for us to get.
Without a doubt. I mean, if you remember us during course of making Wolflands, we spoke to the two farmers, the elderly lady and I think it was her daughter, and she told us that she'd seen a black panther, and I think she said she was at Harwood Dale. She'd gone to tend to her sheep. And she'd seen it up close and personal. Yep. And she's on a bit of a grassy bank. Once again, he says, she was thick with gorse, the thorny yellow-flowered bush. He says, and as she's just going about her business, she just literally focused on a pair of paws stuck out of the gorse, black paws. And when she actually realised, she can see the head, and it's a big black cat looking at her. But close. These things are there, There doesn't have to be some mystical element to them. And I say that, then immediately I always jump to Short Lane because I can't understand why people are seeing black cats on Short Lane, because there's nothing either side of it. And I sound like a broken record, people, I know, because I say it quite often, but it's true.
And Alan Wolster is just kind of just making a comment here, not so much a question. Some of the cat sightings could be wild feral cats. That's what Alan said.
They could be, but they've got to be between the size of a spaniel and a Labrador, Alan. But I do know what you're saying. There are wildcats out there. What me and Bob Brown saw on Bempton Lane weren't a wild. Well, it was a wild cat. So putting it into context, Alan, yes, you're correct. It'll have been wild cat, but it was big. It's got a great big bushy tail. There were one seen up near Falling Foss last week. A couple watched deer run across the path. And then,
and where's Falling Foss?
It's up in North Yorkshire, up around the forests near Harwood Dale and Dalby Forest, up around that way. Big expanses of land, big place, loads of places for such a thing to get away and hide discreetly, and lots of game. We've talked about cats a lot, Les.
Yes, it's cat night, folks, and there's bringing some great questions in, and I've got to say, I think what time have we got, guys?
It's 6 minutes.
Right, well, a little bit of we've got an announcement to make, haven't we, Paul?
Are we getting married?
The 27th. Well, yeah, but yeah, you won't be in white though. No, I didn't think so. Right. You put me off my stride there. That was an awful thought came across my mind then. Yeah, we've got a fairly important announcement for everybody and what they can do on the 27th. So it's this time next week, and I'll let you run with that, Paul.
Yeah, well, Don has kindly offered to host another Zoom meeting for us. He's going to chair it, and we'll have Sky and Alison hopefully doing some moderating for us. And we can only have up to 100 people in. And everybody, Don will tell you the procedure, but I think you've a button to press and your hand can go up if you've got a question. Or it doesn't have to be a question to me. Let's hear your stories.
Yeah, I mean, and don't forget in your Zoom meetings you can actually put faces to names.
That's right, yeah.
People that come on the stream regular, obviously. So it's a great way of talking to other people who come on the stream.
Exactly, and I think it's great, and it'd be good to hear other people's accounts. You get inside other people's heads a little bit, can't you? And just get an idea of why they're watching this tonight and why people are. It'd be good. Put some out there now. Tell us what's inspired you to look for live streams on the unexplained, on the paranormal. I would hazard a guess that most of you have had an experience of your own.
Yeah, and now's the opportunity to actually probably put something on the website as a report, Paul. And
Yeah, send the reports to
send a report.
truthproof.uk.
Yeah, to the address what's on the screen now, and it's a good talking point for next week's Zoom call.
Excellent.
Right then, okay. Moving on then, you've got. Well, I think we touched on most of that there on the truthproof.uk. What else can people do apart from make reports, Paul?
Well, they can. If anybody's interested in the books, they can get the paperback books there. Because they're not available on Amazon. But you can also get the books on eBay, and you can get the Kindle books on Amazon. And just interact. Just share any information that you've got on the strange and the unexplained, and let's just let it keep growing. Let's let it gather pace. That's all we can do. If you've got a website of your own and you want, and you think it's relevant and you want us to link it, we put a link in for Ben Lovegrove's site, which is brilliant. Earlier in the week, I think Don's done that. If he hasn't, he's on with it. And other people, for people's books, because it's not just about advertising what I'm doing. There's other people out there doing equally good work and writing books that are absolutely amazing, and get them featured as well, and see if we can sell books for other people.
Yeah, and
we're not making no money out of it, by the way. We're just doing it for other people.
Yeah. Well, that's it, and it's and a lot of this is to get people talking more about it, isn't it? To spread the word around. Obviously, then it entices other people who've got a story then to come forward and write that down.
Yeah.
So just moving on a little bit then about this Truth Proof channel. I think it's around about 6,700 subscribers at the moment. Obviously, we want to get it to 7,000 very, very shortly. I mean, it's not a big milestone to reach, but so if you can share, and press the notification bell, share the stream, share the channel, share everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Amongst other people.
More Coca-Cola.
And more Coca-Cola, as Paul said. So, so it's like, share, subscribe, and all that business.
Excellent.
Moving on then, Paul.
Yep.
I think then we'll just go and pick up on something I got wrote down here. The werewolf sightings of foxholes. So, what is it you can tell me about that?
I'm glad you brought it up, really. I mean, because I thought we were going to touch about some of the little beings of Stakston Wold, but the foxholes works. So, foxholes, Fordon, what we talked about, and the cat at Fordon, they're all really close. We're all within a few miles of each other. Stakston, it's all really close and concentrated. And we've got what I talked about in Truth Proof 4 as the car chaser, and the guy driving his car through the village towards foxholes that night. I think we maybe talked about this last week, and this thing was outside of his car. But then if we jump to Ford, we've also got the reports of I call it in the book, the Fang Man, simply because the guy who sent me the reports, that's what he called it. And this bipedal creature stood outside of his car at Fordon as he was parked with a colleague near the little church down in Fordon. You're going to have to Google these places, people, because they're really unassuming tiny villages with a very small population. But it spreads out. You've got, if you go further up to Stakston Wold, which is less than a mile away near the old RAF base, very close, one of the farms there, they were reporting in, I think it might have been 2015, 2016, but I bet it's been reported decades before, and I bet it's still ongoing. When a friend of mine were doing some work up there, they were building units for pigs and other livestock. The staff, the farmhands and families, because there's people live up there in cottages, they weren't offhand with him, but they were very aloof and careful about what they were saying. And obviously he knew I'd got an interest in this. And he's talking about the strange lights. One night leaving the place, he'd seen two balls of light, one above the other, and they were moving about like in some like a clock, one replacing the other. And he told them about that, and they said, as he got to know him, as he'd been working there months, he said, "We're not bothered about the balls of light. We've seen them. We see those kind of things all the time. So we're more interested in the little beings, the small beings that are up and around there." And when they're driving the tractors along the fields, and I've not got loads of reports of these people, I'm not saying it's happening all the time, but they'll just get a flash of a pair of legs running in front of the tractor and no body. Almost could be similar to what we've described with Jan Maccabee, and this sort of glimmer type being. But they're saying that obviously they're familiar with deer, they're familiar with a hare and animals. These are humanoid type legs. They've seen them in the farmyard. He said he was there in the canteen one day, and a farmhand came in and said, "I've just seen one," and then went quiet. And then it came out as they got to know him, as they got to trust this man and guy we're working with. They were telling them. So the beings of Stakston Wold. Interestingly, we've got a lot of burial mounds up there. We've got Sharp Howe up there, the Barrow Cemetery, and all these places. We've got the ancient earthworks and Stakston Wold itself, which is built on a Roman hill fort. So there's a history of people inhabiting that area. Even though it's remote, it goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years, and the strangeness just never stops. I mean, there was a farmer I spoke to who farmed Flixton, and many years ago, he said when he were a little boy, there was a ruin of a farmhouse up on the wold, and it were called Black House. And he told me that people said that's where this thing lived, up and around there. I can't find no reference to Black House. The farmer's been a reliable reference with things that he's told me, and he did farm that area years ago. Do you know what I mean? It's not somebody who said I used to farm Flixton, or I used to work in Flixton, and you find out 6 months later he actually worked there for 3 weeks and got sacked, and that's his claim to fame. They actually farmed that area. So, but I can find no reference to Black House. I can find Bandog House and other places, but not Black House. So yeah, the little beings of Flixton. I know I've not dwelled on the Stakston Wold and the foxholes because I do think we touched on that last week. So all good.
Yeah. Alison Buttle is asking, Paul, hey up. Hey up. That's Yorkshire dialects. Yeah, now then. Paul, hey up. When was the last sighting of a cryptid at Bempton?
I don't know. It's a while, isn't it? I know Jamie, who's in Wolflands, and it was January 2020. There's people seeing things after that, but I don't know whether we've had anything as dramatic as what she saw. And then the previous year, it was the military guys who saw something, 2019. So, I mean, unless anybody... let's just throat net a little bit wider. Speeton. We got the guy with the dog, the working dog, the pointer dog, who saw the thing on the side of, just up from Blackcliff. But then again, that was 2019. That was November the 12th, 2019. So I dare say other things have been seen. In fact, I will not call it a creature. I do know somebody working on some machinery at one of the farms. And once again, it's that influence, it's that feeling, it's that strange influence that these things have and put on people. I don't know any other animal that can do it, or anything else that can do it, apart from something from the true unknown. He's working on during the night on a piece of machinery, and I think it was something like a JCB or a dumper, heavy what they call plant machinery, in farmyard, fields either side of him, edge row, and he just got a really, really uneasy feeling, suddenly started to feel a bit frightened and edgy. Stopped what he was doing, got a torch, shone it round, not low to the ground, stood high up, didn't see an outline of anything, two huge yellow eyes looking at him. Was it an owl? I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's just keep real. Let's not get carried away and imagine everything's something like what we've been talking about in Wolflands. But it were enough for somebody who's lived there and knows the area to pack up what they were doing and go inside. It frightened them. you know.
And what year was that, Paul? Just remind me again.
That will have been about 2021. But
Right.
but it's not what Alison asked. It's not a creature sighting, and I've often wondered, you know, if are we creating these things? You know, we're talking about these things, and people are seeing them, and people see them more, or is it just the fact that suddenly somebody's talking about something I saw, and now I feel safe to talk about it? I know for a fact there's a guy in Flamborough walking on from a pub, and I'm not saying he was drunk, but he was walking home during the night towards North Landing, and claims that there's the shadow of a huge black dog. He's on the pavement, on the road. There's nothing there. You'll not get cars whizzing up and down these roads. And you can see the shadow of a huge black dog. We all cast a shadow in right light conditions. So that's what he saw. But he couldn't see a dog. So what we're looking at, you know, you can throw these things out. There's some bungalows on the cliff tops going down towards North Landing. Some of them look out towards sea. There's a little cul-de-sac on left-hand side. You see, this people is for the people who live in these locations that say nobody ever sees Oaten. I don't know what he's talking about. Lives down there, and as a little boy, claims that in the shadow of the curtains, it could have been somebody in a mask. But we're in a bungalow in a remote place back in 1970s, and he says that something with a dog's head were outside window. You know, we have to be real. It could have been somebody in a mask, just frightened a little lad, you know. But I don't know. We're getting the reports. I've absolutely no reason to disbelieve what the people we've spoke to in Wolflands have told us. And you know, we had several reports that we never even featured, and we've got one that we had to take out of Wolflands, not because it weren't good, it just didn't fit criteria of where we were going with it, because most of the things that happened in remote lonely cliff tops and in woodlands, and this one didn't, and that one will probably feature in something else we do later.
So let's have a look. Playing devil's advocate here, Paul.
Yeah.
How much of folklore translates or impresses upon people, or they read about and hear about it, that in so much as they create a story themselves?
I don't know.
Are you with me?
But I don't know, Les. But it seems like folklore, the things of folklore, are bleeding over into present day. And maybe there's a time and a place for it. It might all kind of dissipate and then come again. Is that the reason that at certain points in our history, as we've evolved, we've got these flashpoints where these creature sightings are seen and these phantom dogs with huge glowing eyes, and then it dissipates? I don't know. I don't personally think that the people we've spoken to, and I can only go on people I've spoken to, are making these things up. We've got another report that we hope to use to some degree in a future documentary, because as Les has probably told you, we are starting another one. Plus I'll be doing some work with Chris Turner. But primarily Wolflands, and it's not Wolflands 2 people, because even if it were a working title, I don't think it'd finish on that, because we're going to branch out into other parts of the unexplained. But we've got another report from the forest where the gamekeeper had his encounter. I'm not going to go into a great deal about it, but it involves a group of school children back in 1990s and a teacher. And it's incredible. So they didn't know. Neither the two did meet. Tony Dodd, 1990s. He's researching in those forests. There's be people in chat who'll know Tony Dodd. He was the famous... he was the police detective who turned ufologist, wrote a brilliant book called Alien Investigator. If anybody wants to read a good book, look it up. It's a great book. It's passed away now, Tony. But back in the 1990s, what's Tony Dodd doing? He's in Dalby Forest. He's in these forests looking at strange creatures and strange animal deaths. That's what we'll term it as. And other things. And he didn't know the gamekeeper. How ironic that if them two had met, what would they have had to talk about? Nobody were talking, people. And is it just the fact that not just this channel, but other channels now are providing a platform for people who've had these traumatic experiences? Because that's what they are in a lot of instances. Somewhere to feel safe, somewhere to share their encounters. My problem at the moment, people, and there will be some of you in here, I know, that sending me information, it's all going into folders, it's not getting disregarded, and I do reply to everybody, but I just can't handle the overwhelming volume of stuff that's coming in. But I do appreciate it and keep sending it, because there will be a time when all I can do is just sit down and go through it.
Let's have a look then. I've got a question from Brian Ibach. Welcome, Brian, if you're still on the stream. Sorry if I missed it, but has Paul Oles commented on the Arrow congressional hearing yesterday? Do you know anything about that, Paul?
There's a few people sent me information of it, and I'm going to sound terrible, aren't I? But as I've said before, Paul lives in Paul's little bubble, so I haven't really done any research. But people have been sending me stuff about this, so let's talk about it next week. And if anybody's got any extensive knowledge on it, it'd be great for you to come into a Zoom meeting and talk about it with us.
Yeah, sure. And I can't say I'm up to date with it one bit. So
once again, it's the powers that be that are releasing more information and allowing more people in high places to talk about these things. You know, these things that for decades didn't exist, were of no defence significance, were of no importance. It were all a load of rubbish. And let's laugh at anybody that says they've seen or experienced any of this. It'll only grow. This snowball is just getting bigger and bigger. And honestly, it's creeping. It's slowly getting bigger.
Right, I don't know if you want to go to another question. 4358169. It sounds like my ex-girlfriend's telephone number, that one.
Oh, God.
Actually, but I don't think it is there now. Right, have you used a metal detector to check for implants in your body, Paul?
No. No, I haven't. And I've no idea if these things have ever been there. I don't know. No, I ain't got an answer for it. I never covered it in Wolflands, and I've no knowledge that there's anything like that. But good question.
Just to follow on from that, actually, a UFO nut, is asking, "Hi Paul, what about regression? Would you consider this to find out if anything did happen to you?"
No. Simply because, I mean, who would you choose to work with regression? And I'm sure there are great people out there, but what if you got wrong person, and what if it influenced what you were thinking? I were really careful writing Night People not to add or take anything away from the experiences that I'd remembered. I'd been, as that happened through childhood, obviously you've never written them down, but when I sort of started getting more heavily involved in the subject, because it had always been there, I started noting everything. I call it the Book of the Strange. Somebody stole it from Yorkshire UFO Society. They've got the book. I'm not going to say who, but he knows if he ever listens to this, and he knows my views on it, and he knows what I think. But anyway, and there were loads and loads of information that I could have included in Night People that I never did. And I don't know. I've lost thread now, just thinking about that. Sorry, people. What would it?
It's about regression.
Regression. No, because I wouldn't want anything. I wouldn't want to think something had happened and maybe add to it and build a story around something that didn't happen. You know, I'm talking at the Awakening this year, and I'm going to be talking about the Night People. That's going to be the basis of the talk. And probably one of the first things early into talk that I will say is, if you're expecting to hear a story about some kind of alien intervention from start, with a start, a middle and an end, you're not going to hear it. You're just going to hear cameos of events, because I've refused to build what I think might have happened at the beginning and what I think might have happened at the end, because I simply don't know. And some people do have that full knowledge of what happened to them, but I don't. And I'd hate to do the regression and then start adding things.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Awakening, because we're just going to segue into a few second advertisement for the Awakening of 2023.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get it to play. Here we go.
Hello, Paul Sinclair here, and I'd just like to say that I'm very much looking forward to speaking at the Forbidden Knowledge World Tour in conjunction with the Awakening Expo in Manchester this year. The conference takes place on the 25th.
Yes, it wanted to stutter, stop and start. So yeah, just was it on the 25th, 26th, 27th of August, I think, Paul?
Yep. Remember the dates. And
yeah, 25th, 26th, 27th of August. The video I didn't want to play for us, guys. So yeah, Paul is speaking at the Awakening this year in Manchester.
Yeah, I'll be talking, as I said, the night people. And yeah, be getting that talk together. I'm looking forward to it, and it'll be the first time I'm speaking about these things on here, but it'll be the first time I've ever gone from what I think were 1966 when it started to when it finished, and do these things ever finish? My gut feeling is that it's finished for me. You know what I mean? Finished in 1998. Excuse me. But 1966, and my dad waking me up to look at this sphere of light near the Mexborough Power Station that travelled the full length of the town of Mexborough. And nothing happened that night, but I think that was catalyst. I think that I was so focused on what I was looking at, and I think it was a true UFO. Although my dad didn't say that, I don't think he had any interest in such things. He just saw something unusual and woke me up to look at it. And yeah, I think everything started from there in the 1960s. And I'd love to hear more people's reports from around South Yorkshire in the 1960s. See if there's anything that ties in with my own. I have a friend who I've not spoken to, or I hadn't spoken to for 30 years, called Adrian Kirby. He was best man at my wedding, and we've been friends throughout school. And I've said in Night People, I never really told anybody about these experiences. And when I met up and spoke with Adrian about 18 months, 2 years ago, we finally got speaking after all those years. One of the first things he said, well, can you remember I can remember you telling me about all them things. I forgot I told Adrian, which is great. You know, it's not, it don't make it true,
yeah,
but it's good realizing that I did speak to people about it. So, Les, have we more questions, or where do you want to go?
No, we'll carry on with some questions. Right, 4358169 is definitely a number I remember. But I've got another question in. You buried an analog and a digital clock on the cliffs, Paul. Which one lost an hour?
They were both.
Can you just
analog,
go into the back? Can you go into the backstory of that for people who don't know?
Yeah, but they were both analog movement, but digital. You know, they both had all the watches. It were 4 boxes, right? Like Les says, backstory. Odd times, when I get up onto those cliff tops, I'll spend a bit of time talking to rock anglers during night. I don't just walk up and start striking conversations up, but over years you do end up talking to them. Ask him if anything unusual has happened, and I got talking to this guy one night. He'd come down from Middlesbrough, and he was telling me about the time that he'd been fishing there, and let's say it was 9 in the evening, he intended to go home. And he looked at his watch, and it's 8 o'clock. And he thought, well, I'll give it an hour, and I'll go home. This is winter time, it's dark. I'll give it another hour, and I'll go home. And he looks at his watch, meaning what he perceives is an hour.
Yeah.
And it's still 8 o'clock. And I don't know if he'd got missing time, but his watch had stopped. It was stopping watches. Something up there had stopped his watch. And there were another bloke that said that they'd had this period where his watch had gone kind of haywire. So I thought, right, I'll have a go at some kind of experiment. And I got some plastic containers, good ones, rubber seals on them, and I got some money bags, what you get from bank, and I got 2 watches and set them at the exact same time within 10 seconds, you know. Put them in the bag, put them in the container, and I did that with 4, so we've got 8 watches. And it's funny because I've got this here, and I didn't plan on this, it was pinned to the wall. So, and it was September 11th I started it, 2016. There, look, people. And it will pinned at wall there. And I'm glad, because I'd never remembered this. And I call it the time experiments. And I buried these watches at 100 paces apart, 400 feet apart on cliff tops. Careful not to damage out. It's a nature reserve, people, and we know that there's also going to be people saying, what's he doing that for? I was careful not to damage anything. It's a little bit of grass you're digging up. You're not making a big hole. It's not a tractor that's digging a hole in a field. So I get visiting these watches at least once a week, but sometimes more, digging them up, checking them. And these are all things that are laborious that you can't imagine. I've got to drive 4 miles to go and dig 4 plastic boxes up, take them out of boxes, have a look and see if what's happened. Now, I said I'd got it in front of me. I've actually got reference to it. Others are just reports, so I don't know the date. But I got to the boxes after months of checking them. I think I checked the first ones, and let's assume that this 7 p.m. Can't remember what it said. Get to the second box, which maybe would say 7:10. But they're still going, but they've lost an hour. I think that's what it was. They'd lost an hour. Both watches. They'd clearly stopped and they'd started again. I wish I'd got the information in front of me. All I've got is reference for it, people, and I started it on September the 11th, 2016. November 23rd. November 23rd, 2016. 2 watches lose 1 hour. Yeah, so and it's there. And so, yeah, something happened. Something clearly happened. I mean, how could 2 watches lose 1 hour and then start going again? Do you know what I mean? So, I don't know. Just my attempt at a little experiment.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you've talked about all electric anomalies and things like that up on that cliff at that very spot, really, haven't you?
I have today.
And
yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and you've not just had one report, like say from the rock anglers, on that respect. You know, other people have experienced lots of other things, haven't they?
Electrical failures that take place up there. Andrew Collins, there'll be some people familiar with Andrew from Ancient Aliens. Andrew's been up on them cliff tops with me 3 or 4 times over the last 3 or 4 years. And he carries with him a lot of recording equipment and the various bits of electrical equipment. And it hasn't happened every time. One at times, everything failed. Nothing would work. Charged up batteries, because he'd been at my house previously. Everything charged, it wouldn't work. My camera's going flat. We get lots of things like that happening up there. And then today, I should have gone with Peter Masters, who's the sort of radio guy. He's the sort of whiz chap with the electronics, and we were going to go up with his laptop and some radio detection equipment, but I've just not had a chance. I mean, I were on cliff tops last night till midnight with Ian and Peter, and I were up at 6 this morning doing other things unrelated to any of this, and I've not had a chance to go with Pete. But this week, this coming week, should I say, me and Peter will be up there, and we're going to go to various locations with these things that he's made himself. You know, it's not just somebody who's cobbled them together in his shed with little bits of wire. He's made them, and the proper bits of electronic kit that he will be able to test. And we've found unusual signals up there that shouldn't be there. You know, one of them, we've got his laptop in front of Old RAF base, to be honest, on cliff tops, and there's just this solid signal that's just shooting up. A big, thick band means very little to Paul Sinclair, people, but it was somewhat interesting to Pete, you know, and detecting the magical 1.6 gigahertz, which they make a big thing about at Skinwalker, you know. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and for those not familiar with the area, Bempton, as Paul said, is an ex-RAF military base, but there is military bases not too many miles away, isn't it, Paul?
There's other ones.
The big one at Staxton, and then you've got the one a little bit nearer, aren't you? At
Speeton.
Where is it? Speeton.
So you've got former RAF Bempton, which closed in '68, and then 2 miles away you've got the Speeton base, which is really unassuming. Nobody'd even know it were there. You know, apart from these masts that are coming out at ground, everything's underground there, and I don't know how much it extends underground. I've no idea. And then probably from Speeton, 9 miles away, you've got RAF Staxton Wold, which, and like I said before, if you put a map, get a map out and put a ruler on it, they're in a line. And that might be just because of that's the correct positioning for these things. There's not supposed to be any kind of mystical element to it, or mystery to it, should we say. And Staxton Wold works in conjunction with Fylingdales. And I think it's a remote radar head now, I think, so it'll be sparsely manned, will Staxton Wold. Incidentally, we talked about Staxton earlier, and remember, I've said in the past about the UFOs around there, and we touched on the small beings that people claim to see. We touched on the cats. It's got the full spectrum of unexplained phenomena, but there's the farmer up there who I used to speak to weekly a few years ago, and in every bedroom of his house he's got cameras on cams, moving cams, filming 24/7. What's he looking for? I'll tell you what he's looking for: UFOs. Is he going to openly broadcast it? No. And why do I know he's looking for UFOs? Because I've been to his property and I've looked at his footage, and this guy had more UFO footage than anybody I've ever seen in my life. He's the guy that should have been doing the short documentary on the Wold's UFOs with Richard D. Hall, then decided he didn't want to do it, which is his choice, by the way. I'm not, that's up to him. But there's a stash of footage there that's it's a crying shame, really. But there you go.
Yeah, I wonder what his plans are then, really.
Nobody will get it. Nobody will get it.
Yeah.
I think I say hand on heart, nobody will get it. It'll just disappear into wherever it disappears to. And there's literally reams of it, because them cameras are filming 24/7. And I've seen quite a lot of it.
Right. Shire Fines is asking, Paul, has Wolflands been released yet?
No. Well, Les can answer that one.
Yeah, no, I'll just say a little piece on that. The music has been more or less completed, so it's all going to weld itself together in the next couple of weeks or so, and then we're just finding a platform for it to go on.
Yeah.
What it won't be on, I can tell you that now, it won't be on YouTube for everybody to see for free at this moment in time.
I don't think it will be. I mean, it's years and years of work, and I think when you see people, and I know we've gone on about it. Oh, it's nearly ready, and people will be thinking, "Well, God, is it ever going to be ready?" But it's two people that have put together an hour and a half and been literally all over the place filming and all over the place just to get little cutaways that at most at time people aren't even going to realise amount of effort that's gone into it. I'd have never thought there'd have been as much effort into a film, but it shows my lack of knowledge with it. But anyway,
well, that's it. I mean, when I started, I had a black beard and black hair, like Paul probably did.
I had hair.
When we started. He had hair. Yeah, he did have hair.
Yeah.
Man was black. So that's really the update on that. I've got to say then, let's have a look. Gaz Gray is in the chat tonight.
Hi, Gaz.
If you're still with us, Gaz. Took a little time to get down to the questions here, but Gaz is asking, Paul spoke some time ago now about a transformation that he witnessed while in conversation with a witness / experiencing, but was briefly in this something. Is this something you'll be able to expand upon now? That's the question.
No, not really, Gaz. I'm sorry about that, but it were a strange one. It were quite unnerving as well, and I did see it, and everything conflicts with what you believe as somebody who's seen things really, really strange and experienced things really strange. And I've said so many times when we're talking about these what people term as the cryptids, I don't think that there's for 1 second that there's anybody transforming from man to beast. And but loads of people have heard me say that. Chris Turner did Elusive. I said exactly the same thing. But I did see something. Can't deny I did see something when I was talking to somebody about these things who had come to talk to me, and he'd got some extensive knowledge that were quite dark. He put his hand out, and I did see his hand go a darker colour. and it was strange. That's all I can say. It was strange, and I don't think I imagined it. It was daylight. I was sat in Bottomley Garden. I was sat in a little summer house, and they knew I'd seen it as well. So I'm sorry, guys. If we speak face to face, I'll go into detail.
Yeah, and it's nice to see you in the stream, Gaz. Ralph Winter is asking, Paul, have you any plans to bring the Truth Proof books out as audiobooks?
I'd love to, Ralph. And Al Carter, who I think were in chat earlier, and a really good friend. I mean, he'd asked me that, and he'd offered to get involved in that. So yeah, I really would like to do that. And I've sort of took my finger off pulse a bit with books just of late, but due to Wolflands and other things. So I really need to concentrate on them a little bit. But so yeah, that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, I'm sure it would. Obviously, then it's accessible to more people as well, isn't it? Obviously. So Colin Falcon is asking, has Paul ever considered putting a game cams up, a game cam or two up?
Yeah, I have put them in Danesdyke in past, and I've put them at the other side of Danesdyke, where I won't say nobody ever walks, but sort of it's a bit private. And I'd love somebody with a bit of land up there, and if anybody who's got watching this who's got a property overlooking sea, who would be willing to let me put a camera up, I'll buy a camera, a high quality camera, and hard drive, and just let it just record and go. And I think that would be a great thing to do. And I know there's cameras up there. There's one on cliff tops at Thornwick Bay, and it's owned by the cafe owner at the bottom there. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I've spoke to him a couple of times and asked him. Here's one to throw out then, just a straw poll from people. I've asked him if he got that. It's a proper CCTV camera like you would see on a street, and that's his job, this guy who's got the cafe. And I've asked him if he would consider letting me rent, what's the word, to view this camera. And I said, I think if I could do that, I could probably get him a lot of people who would want to view this camera at a fee. Not for me, people, for this man who's invested time in putting this great big camera up on cliff tops. And I don't know what reason for it, actually. He were considering it. Right. And I haven't spoken to him for a few months. Who would be interested in paying a small fee? Not to me. I'm not making a penny out of this. But it'd be good if I could go to somebody and said, look, people would be interested in paying £3 a week, £2 a week, and we could get 80 people or 100 people, then it becomes a viable proposition for this man to think, yeah, this is a good idea. So please bear in mind, for anybody that thinks I'm making money out of this, I'm not making a bean. But that'd be a way for me to look at it as well, because I think me singularly is not going to go for it. But I've already asked twice.
And because obviously, as we've said earlier on in the stream and other times, even though when we're talking about some of these like creatures, they sort of like sense when there's any electrical equipment around, and they either don't turn up or they're invisible or what have you, right? But there is obviously, with the more cameras that are available to fix, focused on one particular area, or is it a moving camera?
But this is a proper street CCTV camera. It's just on cliff tops, Les, in middle of nowhere. And I'm not interested in. I weren't really considering anything to do with the creature sightings. I'm talking about this thing looks out to sea. And I think, I didn't quite finish there.
Go on then. And what I was going to say was, obviously, for any other sightings, the more of these cameras you can get up and view, the better.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, good point. And it'd be a way, because if let's assume you've got 20 people in chat now, 80 people, 100 people, and you'd got a group of people that would just keep checking into this, because it's not gonna stop and say, look, we filmed something at 3 a.m. on Saturday 27th. It'll be people looking through the footage that are going to find this, or potentially been there when they've seen it. Because if I'm personally seeing things along them cliff tops and other people are reporting it, then a fixed camera up there, good quality, is going to catch something. It's only a matter of time, and it's just getting funding to get a camera up there. But there is one there. There's one there at Thornick Bay. If we could get this man to move on it, and I've tried, as I said, and I think if I'd got a group of people, or potentially a group of people that would be willing to pay a small fee, one each paying a small fee becomes a substantial fee for him, and it makes it viable. We might be able to get looking out to see.
That's a pretty good idea, and for anybody in the stream or watches it after the stream,
I can see Steve said, would I get copyright on any footage captured? It's not something I've thought about, Steve, and I think if other people had seen it, it's in public domain anyway. And if for a future documentary I were doing it with Les or Chris Turner, I don't think it would. To me personally, it wouldn't matter. I wouldn't want to say, look, that's mine. I think the thing is that it'd be a shared venture. If everybody's contributing and wanting to look at this stuff, then it's a shared venture. You know, I spend hours up there filming stuff myself, and I've got quite a few bits of footage which we will use on future bits of work. But anything's captured, can't say instantly that set in stone, but I would think anything captured from something like that, when you've got people paying to look at the sky, it's got to be theirs as well in a way, hasn't it? You know, or it might even be man who owns camera. I can't say. But
well, at this point, because I am conscious of time, and this 2 hours seems to go pretty quick, doesn't it, Paul? When we've got questions and we're running through some accounts. So I want to switch tack a little bit now, because I've got a couple of accounts from Woolsthorpe, and I think the first one is titled "The Alien Head in the Trees" at Woolsthorpe.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that story.
Yeah, it'll not take long, this, and it's part of the reason last night that Ian, I'll not say his surname, came up onto the cliff tops with us, because I've known Ian a while, but he's not told me lots of things, and he likes to go shooting, all legally. You know, he likes to get pigeons and things. I don't know. I know the people will frown on it, but he likes to do that. And he's in some woods close to Woolsthorpe. There's a little wood there. Incidentally, excuse me, there's a few reports of strange happenings in this wood, and even reports of a bit of I don't know if witchcraft's the word, but there's been people in there doing various things over the years, and I've had those reports. But he's in here in this particular wood, not quite dark, and we'll call it the fork of a tree. And he's sort of looking round, and suddenly he said it just looking at him through the fork of the tree. First of all, he thought it were the breast of a pigeon, but then he realised it's too big. And he's come away with the thought that it looked exactly like a fencing mask. You know, the people that wear the white masks when they're sword fencing. And he sort of fixed on it, looked at it, did a double check, and it's gone. And he's quite adamant that that's what he saw. Now, honestly, people, it's not some sensational sighting, but it's interesting, and it captured his imagination enough to stick in his mind and tell me about it. And very close to there's a farm there. I should set name at farm. I don't think it really matters. At Bridge Farm, and the farmer there, and I think we're going back to 2009. So we're going back to when I wrote about I wrote about it in 2014, but when it happened, September 2009, the Woolsthorpe incident with the UFOs over the sea. Well, sometime around that period, this farmer came outside. I'm not said to have a cigarette. I don't know what he came outside for, but he came out during the night. And I spoke to him, and we stood in his farmyard, and he says, there's a large telegraph pole, maybe about 50 to 80 yards away. He says, it were about there over the pole. He said, and there's a triangle of lights. So it's three things. There's going to form a triangle, but it looked pretty perfect. And they're moving, literally one light, one light, one light. So it could have been one light that kept moving in three positions. He said, but it was that quick, it almost looked like as one turned off, another one lit up. As one turned off, another one lit up. So it was as though there was three there constantly, but he was conscious that they were going off alternately. But then this shape, this triangle, he said it just sped away till it were a dot within seconds. And so that's the time of the Wilsthorpe incident. There's so many things happened around October, September, November 2009. That was the most active year I've ever, apart from 1998 and the triangles and the spaceship landing. But that was the most active year I'd ever looked into. 1998, I was dealing with my own things and I weren't looking into other people's UFO reports. That's why I said what I've looked into. And we've also got the lady travelling home in November with a work colleague, down the road that parallels the beach, parallels Wilsthorpe. And once again, people, there's nothing at Wilsthorpe. There's literally an handful of houses. There's 16 flats that overlook the sea and a few houses. And she's driving down this road from Barmston. There's a red car in front of her, a red saloon car, and it's weaving about in the road. And they think he's drunk. It's evening, it's not dark. They're coming home from work. And the edges, back in 2009, because I've been since, and the edges are about, 15 foot. They'd have been about 8 or 9 foot high back then. And they think he's drunk, so they slow down, they're careful, they're watching him, and they're being very careful. And then he stops his car and parks like skewed in the road. So don't even park it correctly. And it's a road, it's the main road going out of Bridlington. So they carefully drive around him and have a look at him, check he's not, ill at the wheel or anything, had a heart attack or whatever. And then just look to their right-hand side, and there's a huge UFO in the field at the other side of the hedge. And I think she said it's got a red. Might have got this wrong. I don't. If I've got it wrong, and you listen to this, I've got a red light at one end and a red light at the other, and it was huge. She said it went so high. She said I can't even imagine it, but I could see it above the ground, just above the ground, going alongside of our car. She said, I'm just absolutely enthralled. I can't believe what I'm looking at. Passengers absolutely terrified, absolutely beside herself. It's just distraught with fear. And it paralleled them all the way down to the roundabout at Wilsthorpe. And then they saw its full form, this big oval thing, stopped and turned and went out to sea. So that's another sighting. And it's one that I'll definitely going to be covering this year in some work that we're doing. How do I know that? Because I spoke to the lady today. I've been chasing things up, ready for these new projects, and there's so many things that I've left for so long. It's brilliant that these people are still good enough to pick up where it were left off, if that makes sense. So fascinating. I don't even know where the question started there, Les.
Well, we were still in Wilsthorpe, and we started with the alien head in the trees, didn't we? And then you went on to that.
Yeah, staying with Wilsthorpe, just for a second, that's that field where this triangle was seen, but not at the same time, is also where the UFO were paralleling down the road, these ladies, but it's also at the other side of Edge, where the crop circle was seen that people might have heard me talking about, that the farmer hit with the combine head. He said, as soon as he hit that crop circle with the head of his combine, his spaniel that were laid in the cab sat up and began to howl. He said, until he passed through the crop circle. And he said it felt cold, because I talked about this to people interested in crop circles. And I don't mean it's a trick people have missed, but I think it's the first time it's ever been picked up. And I think people should get on. Let's assume that all these crop circles, let's assume that 99% are fake, but some of them are genuine. I think we should, if we're going to investigate them, let's get some really long poles, let's put some thermometers on them, and let's test the air temperature above the crop circle, because this guy in the tractor on a red hot day cutting his crop with no air conditioning on the combine, I should say, red hot day with no air conditioning, claims that when he hit that crop circle and went into it, it became cold. Now, he's elevated in the combine, so that might be something that nobody's ever picked up on before, a difference in air temperature above the crop circle. So I think that's one for other researchers to probably look into, because I'll probably never get round to it.
So that brings me on to the Woolsthorpe Farmers UFO 2009.
We've just done it.
We've just done that one. I knew I
Yeah.
was repeating myself
Yeah,
there,
no
Paul.
worries. It's all good.
Sorry about
No,
that.
don't be.
I'm following the scripts.
No, we've just got a few things we
Remember.
were talking about, and I just go off
Yeah.
topic,
You
don't I?
went off, yeah. It jumps from one to the others, Paul, but it all fascinating stuff. And okay then, so what I'm going to do, let's have a look. Right then, I've got a question from Carol Knight, and Carol is asking, do you have a compulsion to find out more, as in the Close Encounters film? So I guess she's kind of leaning into the CE5 type, summoning.
Do you know? I
this type of
don't
thing.
know, and I'm not. I apologise if I've misread your question. Do you mean for me to find out more? I suppose that's why we're on this journey, all of us. Let's include everybody in this. And if I've got question wrong, I do apologise. But that's what we're all doing. We're trying to find out more. And there'll be periods within all our lives where we actually do seem to hit on the phenomena, and it does seem to interact more. And so, yeah, I'm on that quest to find out more. If I'm wrong and it's about what Les said with the CE5, I've not tried that. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, and I'm willing to give anything a go. Anything that could create some kind of interaction, I'm willing to give it a go. I mean, maybe people are saying we've been foolhardy going into the forest where these things have been seen. But I think you've got to put yourself in these zones. You've got to put yourself in the shoes of the people that have experienced these things to be credible to these people as well. You're not trying to score brownie points, but you've got to have faith in what they've said. And I think it shows faith in what they're saying and what people are saying by putting yourself in their shoes and walking in their footsteps and going through it. You get a better feel for things. And I probably haven't got the gist of what your question was, Karen, so I do apologise.
Yeah. We do have a super chatting tonight, Paul, and that's from Lee Roscoe.
Oh, thank you.
And £20, and he said that's towards the next film that we're embarking on. So that's great. Thanks for that, Lee. Always appreciated. Thanks for your unwavering support week after week. It's absolutely, I know me and Paul think it's absolutely great that you can do that, especially in this current economic climate, as it were.
Yeah,
so thank you again.
Thank you, Lee. And just remember, people, it's really good of Lee, but if nobody gave me anything or Les anything, we'll still be doing this. It's just what we do, and it's not about that. I mean, I should imagine that some people think, oh, you're in it for money. Well, if you think I'm in it for money for books, I can tell you now, I've still got to make a lot of money to recoup what I've put into things, and Wolflands. So yeah, we're not in it for the money, people. If that's ever been suggested. But anyway, well, Les.
Yes. What is it? A question from Lee. I don't know Lee who, or it's just the way Sky sent the question. What are the views of Paul and Les? Right then, it's going to be a bit difficult, this one. Paul and Les on human beings, male/female, seen with aliens here on Earth and abroad. Difficult one for me to put into a sentence, this one, Sky. Do you think they need permission from the human person? I think we've got the gist of that.
Yeah, but how do we know that they're seen with them? If they were seen with them, surely we'd be seen. And this isn't me being clever here. Surely they'd be seen, and we'd be. What do you mean? Seen with human beings? Seen with aliens? I know that you get reports of people saying that they went on board this craft and they weren't just aliens there; they were human beings. But I don't know. I wish I could answer some of these questions in more detail, but I don't know. I mean, maybe there are more advanced human beings than what we are today, working with these what we call aliens. And I throw that term around loosely, aliens, because we haven't a clue what they are. They could be demons.
Yeah, I mean. I suppose at some point in our lives we've turned around and seen some of our relatives who are not quite don't seem human, and they're pretty evil intentions, I guess. And, you could class these as alien demon, can't you?
Well,
These type of people.
it's a strange one. But anyway, do we have another question, Les? Let's just keep going because we've got 10 minutes left.
Because it's question orientated, and mostly, so Date Driver is asking, do we have, now we touched on the answer to this, but for the sake of reading Date's question out, I'll ask it again. Do we have accounts of abductions from the Yorkshire region or just loss of time? No, sorry, we ain't touched on that one. Do we have reports of abduction from the Yorkshire region or just loss of time?
No, I think we've got abductions and loss of time. Is loss of time an abduction? Because we don't know what happens during that period, do we? So it might fall into category of abduction. Prime example I could give is the one that Howard Hughes from Unexplained, the podcast, probably best podcasts out there, people, and I don't mind saying that. If anybody wants to check into, and you haven't checked into Howard Hughes Unexplained, look at it. But Howard read one out before I spoke on his show back in 2018, I think it were. And once again, people local to the area of Bempton and Flamborough. So for the people that said this doesn't happen, here we go. They'd sent in some emails to Howard saying that they'd gone for a walk on the cliff tops. I think it was December the 18th, 2018. I could be wrong. Their walk normally took them an hour and a half. I've got the exact times, but obviously that's not in Paul's head today. So they go to the RSPB, they walk down to the cliffs, and they walk towards Flamborough Head. On the way back, and let's assume that they should have been back for 9:30. And I don't want somebody to jump on me because I've written about this and say, you were out by 15 minutes, Paul. And, bear with me because I'm just giving it top of my head here. They should have been back for 9:30 p.m. During the walk along the cliff tops on the way back, there was a brief flash of light where everything became daylight for a blink. Now, I've seen that. I've seen that happen. Not had missing time, by the way, but I've seen that happen. And the people at Hummonby, funnily enough, have experienced it, who were in what we call the Hummonby incident. Brief flash of light. They looked out to sea and thought, I wonder if there's a storm out at sea or something, and thought nothing more about it. Carried on walking, got to the car, and they were over an hour of time missing. They'd got back and it was well after 10 o'clock. It was like something like 10:30. I think it was well over an hour of time missing. I haven't got the exact times in front of me. So we've got missing time there. So is that an abduction? I would think it is. Something's happened that's made these people lose that time, and also this gap in memory. I also know, which I found out afterwards, and I'm not sure it went into Truth Proof 4, that the witness, the primary witness, later told me that he'd got a scar on his stomach, proper scar, not a scratch, that weren't there before this flash of light and this missing time. So it's interesting. So, yeah, I think the missing time comes hand in hand with the abduction. I don't think there's any other reason for these gaps in time, do you? So there you go.
Yeah. So, well, that's as comprehensive as we can get, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny that he's ended up with a scar.
Now, Lee Roscoe cannot get question in on here tonight. I've just is that what you're saying, Lee? I apologise if it is, but or somebody has anyway. But that's not a dig at Sky or Alison, by the way. We get bombed with questions, and some of them don't get through. But there you go. I just saw that then. And I saw Tom Waters were in earlier, so Tom's been a...
Tom. I'll be coming, yeah. And, right, Conduit 7 is asking, have any metallic objects been spotted at Bempton Cliffs?
Yeah, if he's... I think he's talking... because I talk about spheres of light.
Yeah.
And I think he's on about structured craft. Yeah. The light...
Do you know, I was thinking about things like buried under the ground or something.
Well, who can say? Who can say?
Yeah.
And in Truth Proof 1, I know that 2 UFO researchers claim to have found what they called were alien artifacts. And I wrote about them, but I didn't have a lot to do with them because they were holding little meetings in various places around Bridlington talking about their UFO discoveries, but all footage that they were using were mine. Now, if they'd have come to me and said, "Can I use it?" I'd have just gone, "Of course you can." Do you know what I mean? So based on that, I had nothing to do with them. But apparently they found something, and it were a bit mysterious that they both disappeared. One of them actually disappeared, and other ones out of area. But as regards, what did he say, metallic objects?
Yes.
If I could just turn it into, if you're talking about structured objects, because we could talk about metallic sounding shiny, but structured objects, former lighthouse keeper at Flamborough, once again, never reported seeing anything unusual, not for fear of ridicule, for fear of his job, which obviously lighthouse does its job. It's self-explanatory, it's warning shipping. But if you've got a man there who's claiming to see strange things in sky that shouldn't be there, maybe is he fit for the job? I know he was fit for the job, but would the powers that be believe that? And he was keen to stress to me, this guy, because I got a little folder off him of things that he'd seen, waited all them years. What a shame. You know what I mean? That he was a proper lighthouse keeper before it was just electronic, you know. And he came onto Gantry one night, the Flamborough Lighthouse. So this is structured, not necessarily metallic. And he's looking down the coast over towards Flamborough, Bempton and beyond, and he can see two lights. And they're slowly travelling, and I'm aware at time here, Les, they're slowly travelling up coast. And there's somebody in the lighthouse with him. He gets them out, and they're watching this thing, and it's slowly coming up. And where the lighthouse is, it's about 500 yards, maybe less, to cliff edge. And there's another light bungalow and a little station down at the bottom. The reason I say that, he says this thing, whatever it was, passed between the bungalow and the lighthouse, so it weren't out at sea. And it was very low, lower than the lighthouse. And the beams of the lighthouse, he said it hit it a few times as it's sweeping round. He said, and it just looked like a submarine. Long torpedo with two lights on it, totally silent. He says, and we're just watching this thing as it just slowed and beam hit it. And we got a full view of it, and then it hit it. And it just carried on in darkness going up coast. I think that was 1970s. And as you said, got that report from a lighthouse keeper for the people that in Flamborough that said nothing's ever seen. I know I sound sarcastic, but yeah, I find it, I struggle not to, because these things are here. This phenomenon is real. So yeah, structured things are seen. Shiny things are seen.
Tom Waters is asking Paul, any more info from Hunmanby?
No. And I were only talking about Hunmanby other day because I realised that years are passing by, and the two witnesses, in particular Andrew, he's already agreed last year to sit and talk to me and go through everything that happened. We spoke face to face, and I asked him if he would, and I've not got round to it. I need to do it because it's important that these things are that they're documented. Because I think the Hunmanby UFO landing and all the things that happened leading up to it, it's a bit bold statement, but it's probably one of the most important UFO cases in the United Kingdom. It's a fabulous account. Anybody that's not read it, and it's me selling a book here, read Truth Proof 4. It's an incredible account.
Right, conscious of the time now, Paul, with only a few seconds to go on this stream. Got to thank everybody for coming onto the stream, by the way. Your support is fantastic. Conduit 7, I'm going to end up with a sighting from Conduit 7, who said, I filmed a small alien craft shaped like a head hovering above Buckingham Palace's front gardens.
Oh, good God.
So
all right.
That's a sighting in itself.
Is it something that you'd be willing to share with us? Is it something that you, even if you didn't want, I don't know. Be interesting to see it. Thank you.
Well, yeah, Conduit 7, you got the final question in for tonight's stream. I've got to thank everybody, and Paul, I'll leave it with you to say a few words.
No, it's all good. I've enjoyed it, and it's been easy, to be honest, people, tonight, because sometimes, obviously we're going to get more guests on, just the way things have rolled last few weeks. It's just been me and Les, and next week we're doing the Zoom. We'll see if we can get somebody lined up to talk to, but sometimes I find it difficult. We've got 2 hours, and we've got to keep the conversation rolling. But tonight it just flowed with the help of everybody in the chat who sent us some great questions, great support, and let's just keep it rolling. Let's grow the snowball. Thank you.
Yep, and let's not forget to thank Sky Flower for doing the moderating tonight. Done a great job, Sky, and Alison, who helps Sky, or they take it in turns most of the time, don't they, Paul?
They do.
So that's fantastic support, and thank you immensely for coming on to the live stream. Thank you all for coming on to the live stream tonight. We'll see you all, as Paul said, probably next week. Definitely next week on the 27th on a Zoom call. So if you want to get logged onto that, the information will be on the truthbook.uk website. Okay, so it's goodbye from us both.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.
Just one of them newsreaders things.
That's brilliant, Paul. So ending on Paul's news reading attempts there, we're going to finish now.